this meeting is being recorded.
Okay,
Continue.
so
Yeah.
so let me just give me 1 second, Alex. I just want to say that I made the mistake of forgetting to record. So just very briefly, the purpose of coming here is to see if we could come up with a very simple set of unobjectable guidelines. And there's a number of reasons that I want to try to do this, but this is just an exercise for us to see how that works out. And I started by mentioning a podcast that I had listened to where Barry was interviewed on systems thinking and chaos theory. And the relevance of that for this session was that it appears that rules actually lead to chaos because they are all black and white. And maybe Barry will say more later, but for now, we'll let Alex say what he wanted to say, and then we'll go into actually doing the exercise. Go ahead, Alex.
My feelings on rule-based systems is applicable to the context of where the action's taking place. If it's a group of people in a teamwork environment, then rules are agreed to before they start work. And if it's a group of people dancing directed by a choreographer, and he says, I want you to move around with no pattern, no set rules, do what you like, just follow the music. They're still following a rule, but it's their choice. It's the freedom of each individual in the group's choice. And that doesn't look very pretty from the spectator's point of view. Like if they had rules and they were marching like an army, you'd see the pattern, you'd see them all in line, all in a row, marching along like a parade of soldiers, because they're following very strict rules. Left, right, left, right. So you see, when they're dancing and they're allowed to choose whatever movements they like, each individual dancer, they're dancing without rules. And you've got a bit of chaos going on there, I think. So
well,
yeah,
it's interesting that you said it's not very pretty, because that goes to what is it that we're looking to create? Like, it may not be very pretty, but are there dancers being, is this a creative experience for the dancers?
Well, when I say pretty, it's a matter of remembering that art's in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly.
So it probably is pretty to some people.
Yeah.
It's encouraging to see a group of people doing something they enjoy, dancing, and being able to move freely. They're being creative as well. That might look good to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. Yeah. Over.
The simplest system that everybody's familiar with that's rule-based would be something like a children's board game, like checkers, for example. Checkers or chess or Go or Othello, reverse side, these kinds of games where there's no rolling of the dice. It's you take turns, and when it's your turn, you can make a move, and there's a set of rules which explain what are the legal moves you can make. And a child can learn the rules of checkers. A little harder to learn the rules of chess because there's more legal moves. Chinese checkers, it's a very simple, you can move or jump. And the point about it is that there is an astronomical number of legal games of checkers or chess or Go or Chinese checkers, any of these games, there's an astronomical number of perfectly legal games. And if you look at the state of a game board at some state of the game and try to figure out who's going to win this game or what's the state of the board going to be like in 5 moves, it's unpredictable. That's what you mean by chaos. It's rule driven and it's completely unpredictable. The outcome cannot be seen very far ahead. That's the formal definition of a chaotic system. You know in advance all the possible moves your opponent could make. There's a finite number of legal moves. Might be a large number, might be dozens, but there's a finite number. And yet the thing bushes out into a gigantic bushy tree with literally astronomical number of them. The simplest game is tic-tac-toe, and that's got a fairly modest number of legal games. That's one of the few games that a child can see far enough ahead to pick the optimal move, and if everybody plays optimally, it's always a tie. After tic-tac-toe, forget it. You know, there's no way that you're going to be able to envision all the ways this game can play out.
Hangman, that's got even less moves.
No,
Hangman is where you have to guess a letter of the
yes,
alphabet.
correct.
So you can only guess what?
26.
One of no more than 26 letters, however many letters haven't yet been guessed, right? But you only have so many tries. What is it, 10 tries? And then if you don't guess it in 10 tries.
It depends how many pieces you add to his body.
Right.
But anyway, so let's just see if we could do this really simply, starting with the first one, which actually I have Joel's comment on this. He did change it. So the first one was be open-minded and be willing to alter your beliefs with new evidence. Joel wanted to switch it to be open-minded and be willing to accept you can't see the evidence or understand it. How about if each one of us take a turn and try to restate that in a way that they think is best? See if we could come up with some agreement there that would maybe make.
I've got a suggestion that says you should be open-minded, except when you have fundamentalism, which can restrict the outlook or restrict the open-minded intuition and investigation. If you're fundamentally opposed to rules or guidelines, you'll have issues with every group you join, and especially if it's a teamwork involved. So what did I say? Be open-minded in a group, but remember that fundamentalism can be an obstacle.
Okay, I just had an idea, since this is a work in progress. How about if we take a minute and each put in the chat the way we would word that? And then at least we can look at it and compare it and do whatever we're going to do with it. Is that agreeable?
Yep.
I got to look at it again.
When I use the word evidence, I'm talking about the consensus. The democratic majority do believe in the consensus, I guess.
So Barry put in the chat, it begs the question, what counts as evidence? And that's something we should definitely talk about. For right now, Barry, could you just do what Alex and I did? Just reword it on your own so that we don't have to answer that question.
Yeah, I would simply, where it says alter your beliefs, I would say alter your degree of belief, because belief is not 0 or 1. I might have 50% confidence that some belief turns out to be true, or 95% degree of belief. So it's not just I believe or I don't believe. I have some level of confidence, a degree of belief. And that's what you adjust. As the unit of evidence comes in, you say that evidence nudges my degree of belief up or down by some amount.
So I'm typing it in here for you. So it's be open-minded and be willing to
Alter your degree of belief with your
alter
evidence.
your, oh, that's good.
I think the word there is confidence, but it might be
Yeah.
splitting hairs.
Yeah, degree of belief is expressed as some kind of a confidence interval. There's a whole technical mathematical structure for computing your confidence interval for a
So
degree of belief.
So it's not the degree of your belief, it's the degree of your confidence in a belief.
You can say it either way.
Belief is a thing, right? It's a claim.
It's a possibility. It's a
it's
it's a
claim.
possible truth that hasn't been completely thrown out or definitely true. It's maybe true, maybe not true.
Hypothesis.
Say?
Hypothesis is the best way.
Yeah.
I
it's-
believe,
it's-
I
it's
believe
a
my
working
name,
hypothesis that hasn't been ruled in or ruled out. A good example, this is a true example. You know, when the Hubble telescope failed and they had to diagnose what component had failed. And at first they thought was the memory modules had failed. And they swapped out all 4 memory modules and it had no effect. And then I said, okay, if none of the memory modules are working, then it's probably the power supply to the memory module system. Turned out that was correct, at least up to yesterday's evidence. They now think it was the power supply that failed. That was my most confident belief 2 weeks ago.
That's why when you build a system to be fault tolerant, you duplicate a lot of stuff, right?
And there is a backup power supply, but it's a big rigmarole to switch out the power supply to the backup unit. They started to do that yesterday.
Yeah, that wasn't high on the fault list, but maybe it should have been.
They had to go back earlier into the system and say, if it's not the memory modules, what could be, further back in the cause and effect chain? And I said, I'm guessing it's going to be the power supply.
Just to get back to focus. Anybody else want to add anything, or can we, Alex?
there's a knowledge that you have about something that you don't require any belief in. It's like, I know my name is Alex. I don't believe my name's Alex. I know it because that's what it says on the screen and the birth certificate.
Does anybody have anything they want to add in terms of a better way to phrase number 1?
Yeah, I think that we could talk about number 1 for a whole decade, because
Right, but we're going to try not to do that. That's
Right.
the point of this call.
well, it's a good a noble effort. So I would say I'm saying the same thing, and I'm very in line with Barry on this, that it's always been for me claims and level of confidence. And those are two things that are to be put on the map with when you're making claims. And before you make claims, you have to have a pool of definitions that explain what it is that your words actually mean, or else there's not even a conversation happening. So, and then if you're being manipulated, you're not even in a fair conversation. So like Barry says, it really depends on what you call evidence or framing.
Okay, so could we by consensus decide that the first non-commandment would be open-minded and be willing to alter your degree of belief with new evidence, be mindful of your degree of confidence?
Just fine with me.
Yeah, it's kind of wordy.
Yeah,
Just be
you don't-
curious.
Well,
you don't
I-
need
It's
the last part of it.
it's wordy because I added your part of it, Colin. I added that distinction that you made about confidence. That's why it's wordy. We
That's
can
just-
take
Barry
that
Barry
out.
brought it up first,
That's
but I've been saying it for years.
That's just a synonym. You
Yeah,
say, what
I'm
do you mean
just
by
saying,
degree of belief?
curious.
And you say, well, it's a number. What is the number called? It's called your confidence interval in statistics. You can leave that part out because that's just drilling down to what belief means, degree of belief means.
I like the opposite. And of course, the nonviolent communication would say, don't do it this way. But I'd say, don't be arrogant, which means stay curious.
Yes.
And the famous saying is be open-minded, but not so open-minded your brains fall out. And that's when so we're on such a slippery slope that we're not going to get anywhere with number 1 other than just stay curious. Don't be arrogant.
So again, I'll ask one more time. And actually, I'm going to ask this to Colin.
Sure.
Would you prefer that this last line, be mindful of your degree of confidence, is included to the first line, which is be open-minded and be willing to alter your degree of belief with new evidence? Would you prefer it be included or not included?
I
That's the
think
only
you're
two
saying the
choices.
same thing twice, where what you're asking me if I want to
That's
include,
not my question.
just include what I put to be more terse, or put what you put to be more open.
Oh, I didn't put that. I'm using Barry's definition. I
Okay.
think Barry's was better.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, open-minded means being curious. Closed-minded means non-curious. End of story.
Alex?
I've simplified it even further in the chat.
You
Be
type it?
open-minded, be open-minded, not closed-minded.
That's a totality.
Okay. Can we move on to number 2?
What do you call that? No, not a totality. What's the word, Barry?
Tautology.
Tautology. Yes, thank you.
So number 2,
Please.
and again, I'll ask you to do it in the chat. Strive to understand what is most likely to be true, not to believe what you wish to be true.
Yeah, that's basically be objective is the shorthand for that.
Number
Objective,
5 of the agreement.
Objective means, it's the opposite of subject. Subjective is what you wish to be true. That's subjective. And if you say, never mind what I wish, what would be, the God's truth, the ultimate truth beyond what I wish, that's objective. So just
Yeah.
try to
That's
find out
right.
what's objectively true.
There's a way to overcome this dilemma between the objective truth and the subjective truth. And that is just to simply say that the truth is what's obvious to the observer. Truth is what's relative to the observer. Over.
And the book Sapiens really makes the point about intersubjective, which is a third category, which is not what the story I want to believe, but it's the story we collectively believe.
Yeah, that could be a myth. A lot of cultures have myths.
And if you can believe whatever you want, but if you can't make a dent in the intersubjective culture, it doesn't really matter what you think.
It does matter. It's, those voodoo
Trump is still
tribes.
president. What are you talking about? Trump is still president. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the tribes that have the witch doctor in the
Same
voodoo
thing.
culture. He would point the bone at a villager who'd committed some wrong, and that such powerful voodoo that within a few days that villager would be dead because of the belief.
You're talking
That's the
voodoo,
be-
man. You're
They
talking
believe, yeah, they've had the bone pointed at them by the voodoo doctor, and they knew their life was over. Because
Heard of the mafia.
they believed it so strongly. Yeah.
Okay, so I think what I would like to do is bring it back to point with saying I like to follow the sort of like you got the rule of 10, right? Well, there's another rule of 5, which is the 5 agreements. And it was originally the 4 agreements, right, Barry? And the 5th one was be skeptical. So that's kind of what we're hitting today, that 5th agreement, be skeptical.
Miguel de Ruiz was the guy who came up with the 4 and then the 5th one.
Yeah.
What's his name?
His name is Miguel de
Ruiz. Yes.
R-U-I-Z.
Yeah.
4 agreements. Yeah, got it.
Yeah,
And
4
also-
and 5.
Also, we're talking about worldview here, which is very intersubjective. And so my worldview, I think, is bubbled out of Christianity, and it's captured mostly in a poem called the Desiderata. I think that's how you say it. Desiderata? Desiderata. And so that's a really good one. And I try to push that as this kind of a flavor of a talk. Like what it says, listen to the people, even if they have humble thoughts, because it's valuable to listen to other people. But the question is, if you're listening to people in a forum where there's some kind of urgency at play, then you have a duty not to be open-minded for a million more suggestions on how to make a mousetrap. It's like, we need a mousetrap and we need it by Friday. So context matters more than anything. And I think that's my number one confusion and frustration in this group, is being expected to swim when I don't know if what medium I'm swimming in. I don't know if it's water. I don't know if it's lava. I don't know.
So
I don't know if I'm in outer
hoping-
space.
What I'm hoping we can do is to come up with at least 4 or 5 sentences that are appropriate for every context. So Alex put something in, he put in for number 2, be open-minded, remembering beliefs that are not able to keep up with new evidence will be stumbling blocks. Bear accurate witness, be open-minded, not closed-minded. I put in, strive to understand even that which makes you uncomfortable when evidence is presented that goes against your beliefs. Does anybody, Barry, Colin, you didn't put anything in the chat.
I'm just saying objective, be skeptical. Number 5.
Can you write it in?
Number
you write
5,
it in?
5 agreements. 5th of the 5 agreements.
But the problem with saying 5th of the 5 agreements is that somebody walking into for the first time may not know what the 5 agreements are, or the 4 agreements. So that's why I just want to have a few just really simple things that anybody could understand. A high schooler could read these and say, okay,
In what context? In what context? In high school?
in any context. That's my
That doesn't
point.
work. That
Starting
doesn't
with
work.
simple. I want to,
The
it
golden
can,
rule. The golden rules is what you're going to end up with, right?
okay, so what's the golden rule?
2 versions of it. There's the Hillel version and the Jesus version.
My version is do unto others as you would have others do unto you.
Yeah, that's the Jesus version. And the Hillel version is don't do unto others what you wouldn't want them to do unto you.
Right.
One's in
I
the
like that
negative,
one
one's in
better.
the positive.
And that's the point. I'm trying to find something that one version will be sufficient wherever somebody's coming from.
Well, take the
That's
Bible.
that's the task,
Take the
that's the
Bible. That was the task of the Bible, I believe.
right? I want to do better.
Yeah. Well, that's humanism. But
If I hope-
the thing is that depending on the person's agenda or understanding or what they're bringing to a conversation, which is the context, they're going to use that text and interpret it to their means. And they're going to think that they're justified, and they're going to think that they've checked off all the boxes that you're saying do this. The other guy on the other side of the interpretation is also going to say, I agree with Stacey, but I totally disagree with the other guy. So we both agree with Stacey, but we totally disagree with each other. And that is the conundrum that I'm
But
trying to
that's-
avoid.
That one thing, Alex, I just want to say,
Sorry.
you're taking it to the next step, and those are way deeper conversations. All I want to do is in an hour just come up with 4 basic things that we can later dig into each one of them and add to them. And that's where we may be forking off into different directions. But I'd like to see if we could find one starting point. And keeping it simple is the way to do it. Alex, and then I want to go on to number 3.
Yeah, as a preamble, before we start reading the non-commandments, there ought to be a preamble that explains the fact that these non-commandments are what the team has agreed to work with. Is that okay?
Yes.
Because
So,
after
I'm
all,
still-
it's all about agreements, isn't it?
Yes, so if we could look at what Alex and I put up there, and if Barry and Colin want to, again, I'm looking for like 1 or 2 sentences that meet all of our criteria, all the 4 of us that are here. If we could come up with, just for the 4 of us, something that works for us in 1 or 2 sentences. So we have the first one we agreed on. Let's agree on the second one so we can move on to the next.
There's one that's not in your list, I think, which is the Hippocratic Oath. First of all, do no harm. That's the one that the medical profession uses. First of all, do no harm.
Is everybody okay with that being one? I think that's a great one.
Yeah, I'm okay with all of them, except for you have to define your terms within a context, not before the context.
Well,
That's
but
part of
you-
the
We could
agreement.
list 10 contexts to give you know, the basic stories. Like we could give 10 stories of examples of how this works. Otherwise, we're just kind of talking into the non-concrete world of feel good, be better, be your
No,
best.
but Colin, Alex, just
because-
one, go ahead, go first, go ahead.
It's because we don't do that, Colin, because we've got this context of the teamwork already established. The non-commandments are a part of the instruction set for the agreement that apply to the team that's taking part in the process that they've just decided to join together and complete. It's like a project, and the agreements are the guidelines, which we've all agreed to. There's plenty of context there. We're not just swimming in a sea of ideas and fantasies that get nowhere because there's no agreement.
I just gave you an example of where two people could both agree with Stacey's list that she comes up with, but disagree with each other.
But Colin, the point is, this would just be the basic set of instructions. Then, as a group gets together to form their own team for their own task, then they decide, but that's at least the starting point. And they may find out that they can't come together and they do whatever they're going to do. That's where the sovereignty part comes in. These are just very basic guidelines that each team will add their own to.
So you're saying we need these guidelines to start collaborating?
I'm saying it would be very helpful if we at least see who fits into the bigger picture that can resonate with these guidelines. So
And it's
very
gonna be
basic.
cultural. In the end, what you're going to come up with is something that's cultural, I think. Scientific cultural for me.
Well, you know what the culture would be? Humanism.
Maybe.
And that will make you happy.
No, maybe, unless somebody who has a certain religion who's not really happy with people being able to, say, be transgender or something like
But
that.
that's why that's not in these initial set of guidelines. These initial set of guidelines are meant to be a point that we could all come from and work out in whatever direction we're going to go with our own beliefs, our own tribes,
Well,
however you want to look
I hope
at
the
it.
school system would have put that into us, or it's failed,
Oh,
right?
Alex?
there's a guideline that says we have all agreed not to cut each other's throats if we find that one of us has a different religion, a different religious belief.
I can't promise.
We've
What
made
are you
an
talking
agreement.
about? What are you talking about?
We've made an agreement to get along with each other, despite our different belief systems.
I don't make an agreement for someone to spread all kinds of lies like anti-vaxxer stuff. I don't agree with that. That's not a
But do
religion.
you-
That's against my scientific religion, you see.
But Colin, do you make an agreement to do what we came up with? Do you make an agreement to first do no harm? Do you make
Oh,
an agreement?
definitely. But in the context, you might have to do harm. And I'm just saying, if we limit it
It
to
doesn't
saying,
say
okay,
do no harm.
it's 4
It says
people
first-
here, you know, there's no physical worries between us other than cortisol levels, right? There's, you know, so it's very low risk for us. There's no real agenda or task other than for us to figure out what would be a good environment for collaboration. So I assume you're thinking these rules are going to foster that, where I'm saying I'm hoping the school system fostered that, and people, we've already got that. We pick a particular topic, and then around this topic, let's try to bring the nuance to that topic, because to bring the nuance to generality is just to reinvent the Bible, in my mind, to come up with what's going to end up being the Desiderata and the Golden Rule.
Colin, instead of assuming why I'm doing it, why don't you ask me what my intent is?
Well, I hope you would tell me.
If you ask me, if you don't ask me, why would I tell you? That's
Well, I
sort
think
of
at the
like,
beginning you did tell us that you were looking to come up with a list, but you didn't really tell us why.
would you like to know why?
I would like to know why before I
Why.
start.
The question isn't why I want to come up with the list. The question is why I wanted to do this exercise.
Yes, well,
Would you like to know? It's a yes or no question. Would you like me to answer that for you?
yes, I hope it doesn't anger me.
I don't think it will anger you.
That would be helpful.
I wanted to go through the process and see what the process of trying to come up with a simple agreement would be. And it's actually already a little bit more difficult than one would expect, because this is a seemingly simple thing to do.
It is if you wrap a context around it. If you don't wrap a context around it, a mind like mine and Barry's are going to just go like springs. And
Barry's cooperating.
I'm agreeing with Barry all the way. No context, no definitive agreement.
I didn't hear Barry say, Barry, can you speak for yourself right now?
I can when it's my turn.
It's your turn.
I mean, yeah, Stacey called a session to see if we can find a list of universal agreements. And to begin with, we've got to have, a candidate list, which is going to include some that people might want to leave out at the end of the game. But
Yeah, that's true.
the question is, can you have, the way I think of it is, can you have a non-empty list? Can you have a list that has more than one in it?
What are we going to do with
It
the
might
list?
be that the list we all agree on is the empty list, or maybe the list we agree on only has one element in it. Possibly, those are possible outcomes. And when Stacey says, I want to see where the process leads, I have some expectations on the number of items in the list that survive. Maybe none, maybe one, maybe two.
How many would you like to see, sir? Like how many do you think would be most productive?
I think the most likely outcome is one, and only one survives.
Well, we already got two.
We have, well, maybe.
There's the 5 agreements. I think we already agreed to those. Why don't we start with those? Sam already did this show.
Because I'm not trying to redo that show, because with the 5, I would love to do a call on the 5 agreements.
We've got 10.
So
With
Yeah.
10, it's more like a 12-step program or commandments. It's more like a focused way of teamwork together when they have a list of traditions to follow, because they've got a specific goal in mind. When you've got a specific goal in mind, it's necessary to listen to the captain. He's going to sail the ship in the right course. Okay, and he's looking at the weather. So you can get along with each other in the team and focus on your individual part of the project, because you've got the guidelines to help you. Alba.
Alex put in the chat, I think number 3 is in need of widening, and number 3 was first do no harm. And I think because of that, which I think is true, and I think maybe we should leave that out for now, because it does beg the question of, well, what about if we don't know we're being harmful, or what if, I mean, I would say the key word is first. What,
So
Colin?
no, because that's like the backbone of the Humanist Manifesto. Do no harm.
The one I thought needed widening was the one that says the scientific method is the most reliable way of understanding the natural world.
Oh, okay. So let's move on to that one.
Yeah, it's interesting because Doug expressed some dissent on that one. And then I said, what other methods do you rely on? And I didn't get an answer. He didn't answer it.
Welcome to the conundrum called Doug.
No. He said that he wasn't going to be able to make today, but the plan was that whatever we don't finish today, we're going to have another session Tuesday night, 8 p.m. EST, to pick up where we left off on this, because we're going to leave off on this, I'm going to say in like 11 minutes to try to keep it to just 1 hour.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend is maybe we skip number 3 for now, so that we could do that with Doug. My feeling is, I mean, I looked at it, and the only thing that would come up for me is that sometimes somebody will call, sometimes somebody will behave as if they're using the scientific method, and it's not necessarily so. So
Yeah,
I suspect that could have something to do with Doug's objections. Go ahead.
Yes.
And I have some of my own too, but Alex, go
Always
ahead.
context. Always context.
When it says the scientific method is the most reliable way, I would change is to seems to be. The scientific method seems to be the most reliable way.
Or how about if we also add, when properly executed, the scientific,
We can assume things are properly executed, but that is a huge point, that the naivety is totally, I think, the bug in the system, just to assume everybody's going to do the right thing, that chaos isn't going to take its way, that, math is going to be the right answer.
I think that you misunderstand me, Colin, sometimes. It's not that I'm trying to find the perfect rule. I'm trying to find a rule that even people that disagree could at least agree with that. They might interpret what's happening differently, but at least they agree that that is the way they should be looking at something.
Okay, well, can we agree that when some people prove that they're an idiot, that we stop including them in the game?
We can agree that when I, or when you, like, that's an agreement you have to make for yourself.
Well, I'm just saying, if a flat earther comes here or an anti-vaxxer comes here and keeps demanding time, are we going to have the patience to keep giving it to them?
Well, again, I think that's an individual choice. If we all make that same individual choice, that person's not going to keep doing it.
You can give them a 24-hour ban and a copy of the guidelines so they can think about it.
Well, it's just a matter of quorum consensus.
I have a real issue with, like, trying to do this group think kind of process. Like, to me, we saw it play out. We don't have to go through it now. We saw it play out where somebody came, and I think I spoke up to the person when there was something that was going off the charts. I was not willing to continue speaking with them. Some other people made those same decisions.
Yeah.
If my feeling is, when that happens, eventually the problem will take care of itself, because if nobody's discussing it anymore, there won't be anything for the person to keep bringing up. That's, just like in regular relationships with people.
Right.
If there's no pushback, where do you go? There's
Right.
nothing more to discuss. So,
right. So in just discussing all the things that are positive, all the things that we can agree to, we're ignoring all the obvious things where the problems are and where we're frustrated, which is where I think our attention should be.
right. Well,
Is that an oxymoron?
what'd you say, Barry?
Sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah, I'm in an oxymoronic exercise.
Our attention should be where we don't want to pay any attention at all.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if we're paying attention to only the positive things, we're going to be victims of toxic positivity. Not to say what you're doing is that, Stacey.
I don't think this is a question. I don't think what we're trying to do here.
You've got all kinds of ideas, and I've heard you a lot, and I'm sorry if I'm derailing what you're trying to do, but I really do think the conversation is in how do we learn to agree better, as opposed to what general things that are so full of hot air can we just say that we agree on right now. We agree to be happy. We agree not to hurt each other. We agree the golden rule. Okay, now let's agree with, you're stepping on my toes right now and you're calling me an idiot, and I don't like that. So how do I,
Okay,
because
but
both Barry and Alex have accosted me in this group. And I'm
Colin,
still here. I don't have any hard feelings to them, but
bring
it
up-
was never
you bring up-
resolved.
you bring up context a lot. Right now,
Everything is
context.
context.
But right now, the purpose of coming here was to come up with a list of a few things that we could all walk away from and say, okay, I agree with that. No
But why?
brainer.
But you didn't answer the why. I want to know the why.
I want to address this. This is really important to me personally, because Colin, and this directly affects you. So if I can be honest with you,
Sure.
I'm going to.
Go ahead.
I think that there have been many times that you have caused frustration in people and derailed them because you wanted to take something a different way, when in the moment, the task was something else. So right now, the task is, like I said, come up with 4 things, and you've spent most of the call telling me why there's no reason for it.
Not at all. I'm saying in order for them to have value, it has to have a context attached.
So can we address that after we come up with the list of 4 things that I was hoping we would do?
Sure, I'll just preface all my answers and reserve my answer until there's context, because
Perfect.
I think we're hitting what I'm interested in. That's why you're getting air from me, because I'm very interested in this framing, and you're framing something in a way I don't know why.
And that's, you're right, you don't know why. And that's the thing. Sometimes we don't know why somebody is doing something.
But I'm willing to
Maybe
play,
they
which
can
is
see
patience.
something.
I
Maybe
have
they,
patience.
I
good,
think
you have more patience than I have.
we should be focused on Stacey's project here, which is how do we reword these commandments? So where are we up to?
We were up to listening to what Barry says, and then we'll go to number 4. Barry.
I'll share with you an assumption. I assume that Stacey is doing this because she wants to learn or discover something, which we may not be clear on exactly what she wants to learn or discover, but there is something that's motivating her to do this exercise. When you do an exercise, it's like a scientific experiment. You hope to learn or discover something you don't already have a solid familiarity with. Now, exactly what Stacey's going to learn, maybe she doesn't even know herself. Maybe that there's such a fog of possibilities that she doesn't expect to find any one thing, but some things like needle. She's going to find some needle in the haystack, but she doesn't know which one it's going to be. Now, I can maybe predict what she will or won't find, but but I could be wrong. I could just be making a wild guess.
And I think if it's an educated wild guess, it's worth putting out there, and that's what I'm trying to do. But I don't want to derail, and I also don't want to discourage.
Well, but I'd be interested in hearing Barry's wild guess, because Barry kind of understands my mindset. I was a psychology researcher. That's my interest. I like watching group dynamics. So yeah, Barry, go ahead. Take a wild guess.
I think that the real question, and this is a very serious academic question, is it possible at all to come up with an agreement that everybody, to get a consensus on something? And there's lots of academic research showing how the arrival of a consensus is derailed inherently, not just because of people, being stubborn, but even mathematically. The question is, can you even mathematically achieve a consensus, as opposed to, just randomly or happenstantially, or if you have people who are like-minded? And I think that's a very interesting question. It's one that I actually took a course in grad school on. It's called the social choice question. If you have 2 or more people, can you find a choice that they all agree on?
That's exactly what I'm trying to do here. That's it right there.
Yeah, and I find it's a very dangerous thing when it's run from emotion only.
But we're not. Are any of us running it from emotion?
We're not using science, we are.
I'm just running it from, because I've already been through this in grad school, and I know the Nobel Prize winning outcomes of these studies. And the question in my mind is, will this group, without me just disclosing it, independently discover the same thing that the Nobel Prize winning economists discovered when they did social choice theory 40, 50 years ago?
I think you've already told us the answer through the first.
I'm so overcome with emotion. Inside, I'm totally falling apart. Oh dear.
Discombobulated.
No, I'm saying when people make stories that they want the intersubjective population, right, to take part in and hold, like money and privacy and religion, you want those things to be based on what Stacey was saying, based on as many true things as possible. And like you said, science is kind of the best method that we think we have, right? It's the best we got. So, and we might not be able to prove there's not a God, but we can definitely prove there's not a young Earth. So, if you want to start drawing the Venn diagrams and start asking people, okay, so you agree that the world was created, it's an infinite conversation, and no, people cannot agree.
If God can perform miracles and save us from accidents and things, then why doesn't he do that? So
the question is, can you put it into an importance bucket? so that we don't
What?
waste
What's
time
the
on it.
word?
Importance bucket. Is it important that we
Importance
spend
bucket.
15 minutes discussing what God may or may not have wanted? Because we're discussing a story in an intersubjective narrative that's manipulative for some reason, be it positive or negative. But it's trying to get people to agree. That's what it's trying to do, because that is the power that the Sapiens book brought forward. We couldn't get together and agree in groups of over 150 until we had the power of a cognitive revolution where we could come up with myths that we could spread and believe. And we couldn't, and the biggest thing that made us escape our minds and the problem we're in now is writing. And at the very beginning, Stacey asked me, well, can we take this stuff and write it in Zulip? Like, that is the collective intelligence power of the human race, the sapiens.
Okay, excuse me for 1 second, Alex, give me 1 second. Because we're, because we're at the top of the hour, and I'll stop recording, but then I'll start it again. So it could be a separate session, but I want to end this session. And because I don't know that we're going to get much further, I'm going to pick one that I think we can agree on to add to the list. And I want to know if everybody can agree with, be mindful of the consequences of all your actions and recognize that you must take responsibility for them. Can the people in this room agree to that?
I
Yes.
think that's the agreement of being an adult, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that a yes or a no? Can you agree with that?
I think that's close to the definition of being an adult, yes.
Barry, can you agree with that?
I think
see
by-
Alex
maybe
thumbs up.
by age 70, yes, I can agree to it. I think at age
Okay.
15, I wouldn't know what it even means.
Okay, then my intent is to write up the 4 things that we came up with, put them in Zulip, give people a chance to respond, put this call out, let people watch it. Tuesday night at 8 p.m., we're going to continue it. Anybody wants to continue writing on the post, they can. I'm going to stop the recording, restart it, and we could have a free-for-all conversation. I'm no longer the moderator, though. Okay, I'm just.
Thank you very much, Stacey, for
Be
your
quick.
attempt at trying to herd some cats in generality.
All right, thank you all. I actually had a lot of fun. So let me just stop the recording and restart it. And then Alex, you can, let's see, stop recording. If you want to stop, yes.